Hello, Star Power Club. I'm Aaron Chadbourne, Star Power Star, and so honored to be your interviewer today for this very special Star Power revisit with Ralph Roberts, one of the originals, one of the greats, one of the first Star Power stars. And really, when you think back about people who have made a difference in so many people's business and career, it's impossible to not think about Ralph Roberts. So, Ralph, first of all, just thank you so much for your willingness to be re-interviewed today. I know so many people are excited to hear from you.
It's my pleasure. I've been gone from the Star Power family for 18 years when we lost our daughter, and to go to Nashville and be at the conference, it's like it's family. It's all back together. Give me the energy and excited about being able to share more now going forward.
Back in those early days of Star Power, when it was just starting out, when you were interviewed by this guy named Howard Brinton, what did it mean to you then, and what did it mean as you continued in your career?
So at first, I thought everybody was selling 300 or 400 houses around the country, making millions of dollars.
300 and 400 a year.
Yeah, a year. Yeah, I didn't.
Everybody.
I said, but then Bill Barrett was from Michigan, so Bill Barrett told Howard about me, and I thought what I was doing was just. I knew I was better than most of my competition, but I didn't know at the level that I was, that I had achieved, and I had to pinch myself back then. But I just the more I shared, the more I would get back. The more I was part of Star Power, the more that would come to me.
Now, you've had an illustrious career, both in real estate, as well as you've been a published author several times over, named by Time Magazine as the best-selling realtor in the country. You've also done speaking all over the world. What are some of those key messages that you've shared over your career that people still bring back and mention to you today?
Well, if you go back to 1975, it's kind of aging me. That's when I graduated. And I graduated with a 1.81. And the reason I got it from 1.80 to 1.81 is I took gym, and I did really well in gym. And then I was the class clown and most likely not to succeed. So I said, well, I don't want to be that, right? I want to get out of this and, go out and prove that I could do it and prove to my parents I could do it, because my dad was a carpenter. He was always dirty, wearing jeans. And the realtor that came over to sell him lots and sell houses he built, he was always had a Cadillac and dressed nice. So that's how I picked my direction.
And then what fueled you? Because, to get to selling 300 to 400 houses a year, and I know it was a lower price point in the Detroit metro area, but to be able to do that amount of volume, what does it take to get to that?
Well, at first, if I look back, there's things I would like to do different. It was 7 days a week. It was 24/7. So when I got married, and we'll go backward, and I got engaged in '83 to this girl named Patty. And in 1984, Patty says, Ralph, if you're not going to work 9 to 5, I can't marry you. I said, what? 9 to 5? I'm in real estate. She said, I want you to be like my dad. I said, your dad goes to work every day. He's an Otis elevator mechanic. He comes home, might have a beer or two and a lazy boy. Your mom wakes him up for dinner. Then after dinner, he goes back to the lazy boy, falls asleep again. I said, I can't do that. I mean, I just can't give up all that time to go out and make things happen. So we broke up, right? And about 6 months to 9 months later, I met Kathleen, who we're hitting 39 years this year, 40 next year. It turned out fabulous. And the sad thing about this story about Patty and I are friends, her and Kathleen are friends, my wife, and she's in her bed right now. She's dying. She's might not make it till we get back home. And yesterday, she had reached out to me that she wanted to talk to my pastor. Kathleen and I are very active in our beliefs and our church and everything. So I hope that's happening while I'm here with you, Aaron, and the Star Power family.
So you mentioned the Star Power family, and I know you mentioned the loss of your daughter. How important has that community been to you to kind of weather some of these ups and downs in your life?
So, real important. Because when my daughter passed away in 2006, it was a boating accident at our cottage, about 12 miles from our home, and she went to get the sea-doos ready. Get the carbon out of them, as we say. Took the boat out, took the sea-doos out. She had 3 girlfriends staying over, and it was Memorial Day weekend. So her girlfriend, who she went out with, came back, and our daughter Colleen didn't come back. And we knew something was wrong. My cousin, John Roberts, is chief of staff at Macomb County Sheriff's Department at the time. It was on the radio. They found the craft, and they knew it was Ralph Roberts, but they didn't know who was riding it. There was no rider. So when she hit this perfect storm, the weather, the wind, the wave, she flew up. And when she came down, she cracked her head on the handlebars. So when they got her out of the water and took her to the hospital, my wife and I are on the way to the hospital, and we're praying like we want the best that can happen out of this to happen. If she's really badly injured, we don't want her to be a vegetable, so we really want God to take her. When we got to the hospital, she had already gone. She was already gone. My cousin was there, and one of our best friends, chief of surgery, was there, who lived 2 doors down from us, and they had identified her. And it's like I didn't think I could go on sitting here. I can smell her hair, and it was 18 years ago. So, Kathleen and I stayed together. And we're stronger than ever. There's a high percentage of divorces after losing a child. It's a terrible, terrible club to be in. And I try to embrace people all over the world with that, because it's amazing how many people you run in that's happened to. I mean, I buried my dad. Right? Did you expect that? But to bury your child, you don't expect to do that.
Well, thank you for your willingness to open up and talk about it, because I think it's so important that people not just look at the business that you do or the transactions, the volumes, but also your life as people, as a person, as a dad. Now, you also adopted a child as well, right? Because I think that's a pretty remarkable story I hadn't heard before.
Yeah, so my wife has endometriosis, and she's Polish and German, which if you're Polish and German, that means she's hard-headed double, okay? And that means that as a compliment. So we have our daughter, and we got married in 85, okay? And in 87, we gave birth to our daughter, Colleen, and she decides she doesn't want to conceive right away. She wants to spread her kids out. Well, even though she has endometriosis, the doctor says, get pregnant as soon as you can. That'll keep this at bay. And no, she's not doing that. So we decided to have, when she decided we were ready to have the next child, we couldn't get pregnant. She couldn't conceive a child at the time. So we did all the testing. And so then it got to premeditated sex, okay? So we would have sex on Tuesday and Thursday only, because then she had to put her butt on a pillow, and then she had to get to the hospital within an hour to get a shot. Now, if something happened on Saturday, she would say, I wrecked it for the whole next week, right? Because we got everything out of order. But I mean, that's just life. I'm not going to wait to the doctor's telling me when this can happen. I think it should happen every single day, right? So it went on and on. We're big goal setters. Zig Ziglar from way back. We got goals on refrigerators everywhere. We still goal set today. So on our goals, we never took off, because she said, let's just not do this, because we went to try to do special needs adoption, because we already had a child. So special needs is easier to get a second child, and realized that that wouldn't be good for me and her. We just didn't see that we could do that. And so she said, okay, we're just going to have one child, right? Okay. Well, a year later, I'm at this real estate closing, and the lady's pregnant with her 7th child. I'll talk to anybody, as my wife will tell you. I said, have you ever thought of putting any of your kids up for adoption? That seems like a lot of kids having your 7th child. And she smacked me, and they made me leave the closing. And then 3 months later, I got a call from this lady in my office. My daughter was with me because my wife was doing aerobics with her sister. It was either a Tuesday or Thursday night. It was before Mother's Day weekend. And she said, were you serious? I said, yeah, I was serious. I didn't even know who was on the phone. She said, about the little baby that I have. Oh, yeah, I'm serious. She says, well, I'm going to take this baby to social services unless you come here right now and get this baby. I said, give me your address. I went there without my wife knowing. My daughter's in the back seat, in her car seat. She's 5. We drove to this house, got this real stinky baby from this woman who was beautiful. She loved to have sex. She loved to have kids, but she didn't want to raise them. So I put this kid in my car, this baby in my SUV at the time, and I'm driving home. My wife's paging me. This is 31 years ago. I have the old pager, which you could talk through, and she's screaming at me, "Where are you at? Our daughter's got school tomorrow." And unbeknownst to her, I'm on my way home with a new baby. So I called up her brother, her sister, my brother, friends. I said, I got to tell you something quick. Just don't ask me any questions right now. I'm on the way home with a new baby. It's 3 months old. We have nothing, no crib, no diapers, no formula. I need help. And no one questioned me because this is how I am. They all went to the store, and when I pull into Circle Drive, she comes out of the front door screaming and says, I open the back door, and what Kathleen says to me, she says, "What are you doing to sell another house? Are you now got a babysitting service?" And I took that baby out of the car seat, and I seen that baby leave one woman's belly and go to one woman's heart. One of the best days of my life. My daughter helped me do that, who was alive at the time. So.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. How old is your son today?
31.
That's great.
It's my best buddy.
That's awesome. I want to talk about real estate a little bit, because one of the ways you've shared with me that you were able to do so much volume is you found a niche. Tell me a little bit about what advice you'd give to people about how to find where you can actually succeed.
So when I first got my license in 1975, I was a terrible student, as I already said, 1.81, right? I don't spell well. I can talk well, but I can write down notes that I can read, but no one else could read them. So I always had to have an assistant with me. From when I was 18, 19 years old, I had an assistant sitting next to me when I was doing the opportunity time on floor at the office. And one of my first offices was Schweitzer Real Estate. But I had a young person, a co-op person. Sometimes I had my mom be the assistant if I was working on a big transaction. So I knew what my weakness was, so I had to fill that. That's one of the things. And then I always tried to specialize in stuff other people don't want to do, like bankruptcy, foreclosures, probate. People think, oh, that's scary, it's evil. But I specialize in doing sheriff sales most of my career. And then after my daughter's death, I took a 3-year, I still had the office, but I would go. But then when it crashed, I said, wow, the market crashed. Stuff I was worth $300,000, I can now start buying for $30 at the sheriff's sale, or through probate, or through bankruptcy. So I just went to work on that, set up 3 separate departments that shared a database. And when it was a foreclosure, they were on bankruptcy, I'd go to the bankruptcy trustee to get the transaction. If someone had died, I would go to the family. Couldn't go to the family, I would go to a public administrator to get the case reopened and have them hire me to sell it.
And let's talk numbers. How many units do you think you did?
I did 10,000, over 10,000 before my daughter passed away. And then I took that break, as I said. And then when I decided that let's back up a little bit. When in 2003, I was raided by the FBI.
Wow.
And in 2004, I was indicted by our government. In 2000, we'll go to what happened. I was accused of bribing the prosecutor of Macomb County, Michigan. And I did go to the prosecutor with the police chief of the city of Warren's help, a good friend of mine, Paul Pash, who's no longer with us. And I said, this girl that works for me, Cindy Barish, her he's in jail for murder for life, and he didn't do it. I got proof that he had a broken leg. He wasn't in that city. It wasn't him. So I presented all these facts to the police chief, and he says, let's go to the prosecutor. They should open this case and let him out of jail. He doesn't deserve to be in jail. So that's what I did. And they thought that I gave contributions to the prosecutor because he was running for Senate. And Candace Miller, who was running, is a great politician. She's running against Carl Malinga. She says to the newspaper, what, do you got to know Ralph Roberts and to get a new trial? And then she called the FBI, turned this stuff in. And so 2003 indicted. 2003 raided, 2004 indicted, 2005 I was cleared. But by 2005, my bank, I had a $50 million line of credit, and I had 1,000 houses. So, and we were on top of the world, right? I had 100 employees. We had profit sharing. People are doing great. And they come in and take all this away. They brought in asset people to manage my company. And then when they found out, when I was cleared by the government from Washington, D.C. flew into Detroit and told my attorney, we're going to drop all the charges against your client, Ralph Roberts, but you can't tell anybody until we figure out how to do it. Because this involved a senator, this involved a sitting prosecutor, this involved a prominent local business person, Ralph Roberts. We got to figure out how we get to Washington, D.C. and undo what this mess that we got here. So I knew that was happening, so then I decided, it's 2005 now, we said, let's sue the banks. I lost about $20-some million. It was gone like overnight. Well, that's a lot of money. I want to get it back. Maybe I won't get all of it back. So we filed a lawsuit. We didn't actually file it. We prepared a lawsuit, hired the best attorney in the United States that sues businesses, banks and stuff. Like if he goes to Houston, they say, Houston, we got a problem, because that's how strong he is. He walked in the room with my bankers, and they all stood up and left the room because they knew who he was. Took them 2 hours to come back. And they said, okay, we want to sign an agreement that you won't file the lawsuit on a Friday, because Ralph Roberts knows the media, and that he won't be afraid to talk to them about this. So we agreed to that, and we're in settlement talks, getting ready to file this lawsuit, and my daughter's killed in the boating accident. So Kathleen says, let's not fight anymore. I said, Kath, they just totally destroyed us. We have to fight now. And with my love for her and our other two kids, I said, all right, I'll figure out a way. So we ultimately settled. So they paid my company for years, my employees. They paid me for years. And then they paid me a commission to sell every house I owned. It was painful. And, but I did that, and then when our daughter died, I just went into, I was frozen in time. I went to work every day. I didn't accomplish anything for 3 years. What happened right after our daughter died, Howard Brenton called me, founder of Star Power, and he wanted me to come speak at the New York event, Star Power in New York, in 2006. And I agreed to do it. And then my wife flew to Orlando to get the younger kids, with Mickey Mouse and all the fun stuff there. And then the next day after the event, I flew down to Orlando.
So you mentioned the 1,000 homes that you owned and the $50 million line of credit. And I know that for you, you think about most people make their money when they're awake, but you want to make sure that you're making money when you're sleeping. Tell me about that philosophy and how you've thought about investing.
So when I married, I married the right person. This person that's hard-headed Polish princess, German girl. She always saves, right? So when I got shut down, we had great advisors. And if you want to be successful, you have to have great advisors. So my advisors had assets in my wife's name, and I had assets in my name. So the stuff we lost was all in my name. So when the bank would want my wife to guarantee a transaction, my lawyers and my accountants would say, well, she'll divorce him. She's not going to do that. She doesn't want to sign anything. So we protected our assets by doing that. So what I mean by making money when you're sleeping, like we have a lot of rental properties. We have more than we need, but those people pay. In houses maybe we bought 20 years ago, someone's paid for that house. So all of our real estate, we have no debt. And because tenants paid for it, and because my wife is so conservative, that we were able to build this this nest egg. And then after about seven years ago, I got invited to be part of a fund. So 5 of us, couples, we put a $15 million fund together, and we buy businesses around the United States. I have over 100 gyms that I own the rights to them. We've got franchises, and our company gets 7.5% franchise fees. That comes in. We're currently right now, it's 1.6 million, the first of every month, that comes in while we're sleeping. So I just want to keep building on that things. Tenants, you can't list a house when you're sleeping. You can't work with a buyer when you're sleeping, but you can take those assets that you've earned and invest them into stuff that will pay you dividends.
So what advice would you have for someone who maybe hasn't started investing yet, hasn't kind of taken the move from working in the business full time to also thinking about how to make some investments that give them that money when they're asleep? How do you get started and what do you need to do?
So fortunate for us, there's a couple, Bob and Kathy Van Gotham. And Bob and Kathy called me to sell their house 35 years ago. And I said, well, we're listed with someone else. I said, let's list it way too high. In fact, I showed it and wrote an offer to what it should have been at. And I think it was 250 and I wrote 230 and they wouldn't take it because the agent, this part-time agent they sold it for, listed it for him, said, no, you'll get more. Well, they never got more. And this person calls me up, Bob, says, I want to meet with you. I want you to sell our house. I looked the address up. Oh, that's the one I had the offer on. Well, bad news, Bob. Before I meet with you, it's not worth what I wrote. It's not worth what I wrote the offer for 6 months ago. Our market's going it's going down direction. So he said, I just want to sell it. Come tell me what I have to do to sell it. Well, I went and listed the house, and every Friday night we would go on a date, my wife and I. And the restaurant we went to at the time before we moved was called Mr. Paul's Chop House. Great Caesar salad. Place is always busy. So the next Friday after listing this house, I hadn't sold it yet, we're there in line, and Bob and Kathy are sitting down already, and they invite us to join their table. So we started meeting them every Friday for over 35 years now, traveling with them. He's a CPA. He gave me advice that you have to pay yourself first. So if I was making $200,000, I would take a $75,000 salary, pay Social Security, all that, do all that, do 401, all the retirement stuff I could do to build a nest egg for the future. Because I had the right advisor and became a friend through a real estate transaction, you need the best advisors you can get. Maybe it's your uncle, the most successful person you know. Talk to them, pick their brain, because successful people love to share.
That's great advice. I want to get back to, the successful people that you've surrounded yourself with. I know in some of your speaking tours, you're traveling around with General Schwarzkopf. What was that like? And kind of how would you hype up a crowd to then, be entertained by such a serious personality?
So with the tour with Schwarzkopf, a couple pieces about that. One, my brother-in-law gave my wife a book, Schwarzkopf's book, and he wanted it autographed. I didn't know that Schwarzkopf did autograph books, right? So what a challenge this was. So I went on and warmed up for Schwarzkopf, and my luggage had got lost, right? So I told the crowd, that my father-in-law had told me you can wear your underwear 4 days. Right side, backwards, inside out right, and inside out back. So, wow, that made sense. I could wear my underwear for 4 days. So that's kind of stuff cracked them up, right? Or I would go, I'd take a handkerchief, white and black, white, and people, the crowd screaming. Then I'd say, what do cows drink? And then they would all say, milk. And then everyone would start laughing. And then I'm up there for an hour warming this crowd up. And then Schwarzkopf's coming up next, right? I go sit down in the front row with my wife. And she has a skirt on, and I got my hand on her knee. And that's an important part of the story, because when we were all done and they brought him and I up on stage at the end of the program, I jumped on stage, which is about 4 foot high. I don't know how I did it. And I had this book, and I'm right next to him. I said, General, I got to get an autograph from my brother-in-law. He said, I don't autograph books. I said, I know that. He said, but you've had your hand on that young lady's knee during my whole talk, and that was disturbing. I'm going to sign this book. So that's how I got General Schwarzkopf's. But when I took me 45 minutes to get the crowd going, he walked on stage, and it was over with. They were just like, one of the most powerful generals in the, in the history of our country at the time. So that was in Malaysia and Singapore. So even there, he was that famous.
Wow. Now, after you were named the best-selling realtor in America by Time Magazine. It created some opportunities for you in the publishing world.
So, yes. Oh, it was crazy. Oh my goodness. My whole life I wanted to be rich and successful and well known. And now I'm at a point in my life, I don't want anybody to know who I am, right? I can't go anywhere without people coming up to Kathleen and I. So one of the most interesting was that HarperCollins called. I thought it was, I had so many friends pulling pranks on me, you would not believe it. So I just wouldn't take the call. I had the call screened. And finally, HarperCollins publisher was in London on holiday, and they called from London and said he wanted to talk to me. So we set up a time to talk, and he said, we want to take what your knowledge, your success, and we want you to write that for all different kinds of salespeople around the world. I said, okay. He said, and we're ready to make you a sizable offer, high six-figure offer to start with. He said, what agent are you going to use? And I said, I'm a fairly good salesman. I said, I'm not sure what agent I'm going to use on this project.
Did you have an agent?
I didn't have an agent. So I called Zig Ziglar. I called Mark Victor Hansen. I called people that I was in the speaking world that I was friends with. I was in the National Speakers Association. And they all recommended this Jeff Herman in their top 3. So Jeff Herman, I reached out to Jeff Herman, and I get him. I told him how I got his number. I said, I want you to represent me. And Jeff Herman said, I'm not taking on new authors right now. Oh, I've been told you're the best. So if you're not taking on new authors, who's the second best? Because I got a double book deal that I don't know what to do with. He says, you got a deal? Who from? I said, HarperCollins. And it's 6 figures for each book. He said, well, I think I can take you on. So he shot me around New York, had us fly in, and we never got a better deal than that, and we did that. But one of the most interesting things from the Walk Like a Giant, Sell Like a Madman, my first book came out. And we go on a book tour, and we fly into New York. And the Waldorf Astoria. And I get out my American Express card, and I said, hi, I'm Ralph Roberts. My wife and I are checking in. I hope we got a really nice room. And they said, Mr. Roberts is here. And they take me up to the penthouse, 19th floor, where they filmed Coming to America, the movie, right? And we walk in this thing. It's got 6 bedrooms. It's like 7 bathrooms. It's got a dining room that seats like 30 people, outside patio. And I said, Kathleen, I don't think this is our room. I look on the back of the door. It's $19,000 a night. We're supposed to be in a $900 room. And then a little while later, I have a fax machine in front of me, and I'm sitting in my suit, a tie, a white shirt, and boxers. I had taken my slacks off because we were done with the book tour for the day. And the phone rings, and Kathleen picks it up. And she says, yes, my husband is Ralph Roberts. She said, no, we don't. He doesn't work for Comcast, but we have Comcast at home. I say, Samantha, I got to call you back. I hang up, because this room had multiple phone lines in it, too. She's in the dining room. I said, Kathleen, shh. We're in Ralph Roberts' room from Comcast.
Ralph Roberts, the founder of Comcast.
The founder of Comcast, the billionaire, right? And I said, we got his room. So we had it for 3 nights, right? So a question I always ask people, did they kick us out? What do you think? Did they kick us out of that room?
No, it was their mistake.
Yeah, we got to stay there for 3 days, right?
But where did Ralph Roberts stay?
They put him in a suite at a different place until the room came available again. And him and his wife flew in with separate jets. Kathleen and I, we probably flew first class, but we flew in together, right? So when we go to check out 3 days later, I'm at the desk, and they said, Mr. Roberts, Mrs. Roberts, how did you enjoy your suite? And I said, I thought it was really good, but my wife prefers the suite down the street, just to mess with them. So then they're putting our this keeps going, right? They're putting our luggage in the hotel's car. And someone runs out and said, no, this is the wrong Mr. Roberts. He took the luggage out and went back inside. The driver says, what's your name? I said, Ralph Roberts. He said, you're the right, this is you, this is your car. So he put us back in, he put our stuff in, got us in the car, we're driving down the street, and he gets a phone ring. Where are you at? Who are you with? Ralph Roberts and his wife. Where are you going? Taking him to the airport. Where are you at right now? I'm in front of the Ace Hardware store. He said, that's the wrong Ralph Roberts. And he said, okay, we'll see you when you get back. The guy hangs up. He said, I don't know what's going on. People are telling me you're not the right Ralph. I mean, how many Ralph Roberts could there be right here this day? So it was just unbelievable that can happen. But, people heard Ralph Roberts, and they thought it was Comcast Ralph Roberts, not Ralph Roberts, this guy from Detroit.
I mean, you said you wanted to be well known, but you weren't even the best known Ralph Roberts.
I still not the best known Ralph Roberts.
That's why you use your middle initial.
I mean, there was a Ralph Roberts that was Marilyn Monroe's masseuse. Like, how can you be better than that, right? I mean, I'm not trained, so I couldn't do it. Plus, she was gone a long time ago.
There's still time. So when you were speaking at the general session at the conference in Nashville, I thought a very moving moment was you got asked the question of what would you have done differently if you had it to do over again? What are some things you might have approached differently in your career? And you had several amazing answers, and you don't need to repeat exactly those, but I wanted to pose the same question to you again. As you reflect back on everything you had to do to get to where you were, the business that you built, the way that you transacted business, what stands out to you as things you would have done differently or wish you knew sooner?
So I think one of the things would have been to not work so much. It doesn't have to be 24/7 to be successful. So I gave up Saturdays at one point, and then later on my son says, I gave up Sundays first, and my son says, Dad, why don't you give up Saturdays too? And we can, we all could do more stuff, weekend family stuff. I did that. So I wish I would have worked less, worked smarter. But being ADHD and class clown, most likely not to succeed, I always felt I had to prove something. I had to do better than everybody else. And another thing is, I was fierce competition. I just, I would go on a listing appointment, and they said, well, we're going to have one more agent come tomorrow. And I said, that's fine, and we'll let you know after that. Well, what time is that agent coming? Well, he's coming at 2 o'clock. I said, so at 2:30, I'd have a hot apple pie delivered. So I just wanted to be in that listing appointment as long as the one I was in the day before, which was my listing appointment. Or I'd be on a listing appointment, and the people would say, well, we had this person come over, and his first name was Mitch. And Mitch gave these forms, and we're all filled out. All we got to do is sign them. I said, how about I check those forms out for you? Sure, oh, you would do that? Sure. I said, this looks pretty good. I mean, I would like to do a few adjustments here, but if you want me to be your agent, I can make those adjustments right now, and you got to sign in. How about I call Mitch and tell him that you went with me? Oh, you could do that for us? Absolutely. So I did that, or I'd send flowers. I send thank yous. I did everything I could to take first place to get the transaction. So I wish I would have been, maybe I should have given up a few sales. I mean, you're selling 300 and goes up to 500 sales. I could have probably gave up one a month, and I would have still probably been fine, right? But I wish I wouldn't have done that.
Why?
Well, I think I hurt them. Their success wasn't at the same level. They probably really, really needed it. And I did it to win. And it reminds me back, my wife wanted me to for sure share with everybody from when I married her in 85, from 85 to 89, I was at like 7 different offices. I kept getting fired. They told me to leave. The first one was, I always had to take first on the board. The board, I never took second place on the board. One time I was going to take second, and I should have. I went out and bought a lot for $3,000 just so I could beat someone by $2,000. And I took, the next day, he called me in the office, into the broker's office. He says, Ralph, I got 19 agents who are going to leave unless I get rid of you. I said, well, Jay, I sell more than all of them put together. He said, I know it, but we're all on 100% split now. I need to keep them. I'll let you stay here till you find a new place to work. So I went to a Century 21 office. Her name was Bonnie, the manager, the owner. And I said, I want to come over here. I'm like 2 miles away. And she hired me, ordered me cards. We set it up to come in a week, the next Saturday to start. I had my assistants come in. I had like 40 people lined up Saturday and Sunday to come in and redo the listings, buyers. I had extra phone lines. Started doing just what it always did. Phone rang, stuff came in, and she panicked. She said, we can't handle someone that does this much business. I said, aren't we in real estate? Aren't we self-employed? Aren't we supposed to do this? So she says, I can't keep you here. So I went back to Jay Jones' office, and I said, Jay, I got fired. He said, what happened? I told him. He said, that's going to keep happening, Ralph, because of who you are and how you do it and how hard you work. He said, come back here. I'll explain it to the staff, all the other agents, and you're going to have to find another place to go. So I went into another county. Our Okayam office. It was in Oakland County. I lived in Macomb County. All my business was in Macomb County. And I told him the situation. He said, oh, that's no problem. We'll do the split. We split with you till we make 18,000. Then we don't get any more. And I said, perfect. I hit caps in a week. Sometimes if it wasn't super busy, it'd take me 2 weeks to hit the cap, right? So I always hit the caps. Well, a month later, 2 months later, the phone bill went up, the faxes went up, all the lights. The place is open later now too. The electric bill goes up, the gas bill goes up, and it was just pressure. So I was afraid to open my own real estate office. So there was these two guys always trying to recruit me. They would take us out like every quarter. Tom and Kelly. They had a very, very successful RE/MAX office. So they're recruiting Kathy and I, taking us out to dinner, and they whisper to Kathy, Kathleen, if Ralph comes to work for us, he's going to make like $250,000 a year. On the way home, she'd say, you can't go work for those guys. I said, why? Because they only want you to make 250. Aren't we making more than $1 million? I said, yeah. I said, what are you talking about? Yeah, they whispered to me that you'd make 250 if I went to work for them. So they're trying to recruit me, but not have any idea what kind of volume I'm doing.
So what did that teach you?
Oh, it taught me that not everybody was doing the real high volume, right? But being a class clown, anybody can. And I went to work for I did finally go to work for Kelly and Tom. So this is an interesting one. I'm there working, and the IRS freezes the accounts because they owe money. So I'm owed, I don't know, a few $100,000 in commissions, and they owe $60,000. I said, okay, I'm going to have to give them the money, but I want to buy into it. So I agreed to buy out one of the partners. Got to the closing. This is the dumbest business thing I ever did. I went to the closing to buy out one partner, and the other partner showed up. He wanted to sell out too. My attorney said no. My accountant said no. So I still did it. And what a loser. What a losing opportunity. So later on, there was 50-some agents. I baked a cake and said goodbye and good luck. And they said, well, who's leaving? I said, all of you. I don't need this babysitting problem. So I'm not a broker other than to broker myself. So I've been Ralph Roberts Realty since 1990.
And you mentioned to me previously that one of the reasons you went independent is to let you speak in more places.
Yeah, so the publisher was concerned about being a top agent at RE/MAX, that it would affect sales, because the world's bigger than RE/MAX. The world's bigger than Century 21, and it's bigger than real estate. So they wanted my books to be generic, so they could sell them into all markets. So when that came up, I went to work for Metropolitan Life Insurance. I wanted to see if I could use the same skills at Metropolitan Life Insurance, still selling real estate every day. So I went to Metropolitan, and within 1 year, I was the top selling life insurance agent. I did that to prove that I could do it in another industry for myself, because I wasn't sure what I did would actually work in other industries.
Well, what do you think what it was that translated?
So I think people don't care how much you know. We've all heard this a lot, and till they know how much you care. And I think I always tracked what someone would say to me, what the objection was. My grandma's sick. We'd write that down. You know, my dog died. We'd write that down. So when I would use that as common ground. The next time I followed up with a follow-up call, I would have something that they told me that not a lot of people know. Or if they told someone else, the other person didn't write it down.
Right now, given the NAR settlement, the practice changes that are coming out, there's a lot of uncertainty for a lot of agents. Obviously, the good ones are going to be fine, and some of the ones that are maybe on less steady ground either need to shape up or find something else to do. What advice would you give to people who are navigating the new environment as agents, as brokers, as people who are going to have to think differently about how they approach conversations about compensation?
So it's so new that I'm still learning too, but I've always signed contracts with buyers. I've done that. I mean, I want someone to have a commitment to me. It's just like I have a listing, but I want to do whatever it is to represent buyers and sellers the best of my ability, and not be complaining about it because there's nothing I can do. I have to embrace this change, and I hope all the other agents listening to this, we have to embrace this and go forward. This is not the last that's going to happen. There's going to be other things that are going to happen, you know. So we have to embrace those things as they come and learn as much about it as you can. And you know, whatever your company says, your MLS, your state, you know, it's hard to put that all together. But if you want to be successful, you have to, or you won't be in this industry.
So, Ralph, we've talked a little bit about investing and your investing philosophy. And one thing you've talked to me about is how people generally should invest in what they know. You give me an example of a car salesman or a jeweler. Tell me a little bit more about how you think about that as it relates to real estate professionals.
So there's one book that I read every year. It's from 1930-something. It's called The Richest Man from Babylon. And it's how, like, if you're going to do diamonds, do it with a diamond guy, right? So you want to surround yourself by the most successful people that you can. So I've always got advice from my team of friends who became like a board of directors, which we'd have dinners and meetings, and they taught me how to pay myself first, which I've already mentioned, but like live on a budget. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Dave Ramsey. I've followed Dave Ramsey forever. I don't believe in 100%, but I believe in an awful lot. So if you're in real estate and you don't invest in real estate, there's something really wrong, right? Recently, I asked a real estate broker, Carol Smith, very successful, 300 agents. How many agents in your office could retire tomorrow and not have to work again? She said, only one. So out of 300 agents, the broker says she only has one super successful agent that has been investing in not only real estate, but other things. So you got to invest in yourself. You got to pay yourself first. You got to live below your means. When years I've made $1 million, I lived on a couple $100,000, which is a lot of money. Don't spend all your commissions. It's because there may be some days those commissions dry up. And when commissions dry up, what are you going to live on if you don't have a large reserve and investments?
When you first started buying real estate to invest in it, how did you decide which properties to buy?
So, that's a great question. So my first one was on 8244 Timken in Warren, Michigan. It was $9,000. And I put $900 down on a seller finance land contract. I didn't get my broker's opinion. I didn't get an attorney. I didn't get title work, but I bought this house with my graduation money from my graduation party from high school. A couple years later, someone moved into my house when I was at the Indianapolis 500, and that's when I found out about possessions 9/10 of the law. I bought the house from a mother and daughter, but it was the right mother, but the wrong daughter. And so I didn't have the advisors then, and this thing stayed in court for years. Ultimately, I got all my money back, but that shouldn't have happened if I didn't try to cut corners. So don't cut corners.
How do you think about where you invest today? I know you mentioned you have a fund and you look at certain things, but how do you think about where is the right place to put your money?
So it's always the right place to put it in real estate. And then some friends asked me to be in a fund. There's 5 of us that started this fund. And we just look for great opportunities around the country that they're nothing to do with real estate. We have a heating and cooling concept. We got restaurants we're opening. We're just opening our 3rd restaurant. We got over 100 gyms and 2 different brands around the United States. So we invest in something, grow it, and like maybe we can get it to a couple $100 million in value. Well, then there's people on Wall Street, they think they can take something that's $200 million, that they can take it to $1 billion. Well, my group doesn't know how to go to the billion. So we just want to take it to down the runway as far as we can, get a huge payday, and let them take it to the next level. So if you buy good brands that have good founders and you have control as we do, you can be very successful in buying businesses.
I think that's such a pearl, though, because I think so many people think that they need to do all things and be a master of everything and go the entire life cycle of a company, of a transaction. But the real wisdom is kind of know where your value is and know where you can play and know when it's time to get out.
Absolutely. So yeah, we don't run these. We don't run the operations. The founders run the operation. We run the sales side that goes off and sells franchises across the country. So yeah.
What do you think is the #1 key to being an effective salesman?
Karen, about 2 ears and 1 mouth. I know my uncle didn't invent this because my wife's told me that 1,000 times. But my uncle would always say, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion, 2 ears and 1 mouth. And I've always tried to listen more than I talk, even though anyone that knows me listening to this knows I love to talk. I'll talk to a wall, right? Like, I figure I can sell the wall something.
So we talked a little bit about your books, and at the beginning, I think you were getting pitched. We'd like you to write a book on this topic, and now I think you get to choose what you write about. What's your latest book project, and tell me about it.
So my #1 book is Flipping Houses for Dummies. What's good about being an author when your books are successful, they pay for 2nd edition, 3rd edition, 4th edition, so you get another advance and the royalties start all over again. So the funnest book, which is a lot of work, when my wife and I decided to downsize, she probably decided 5 years before me to downsize, because who needs 7,300 square feet and 6 bathrooms and 2 kitchens and with just 2 of us? So
it's a lot of work. It's a lot of house.
But we had people that did that, helped out with that, right? So my mom said one time when we were building the house, why do you need all these bathrooms? And my wife's answer was so he can use all of them. I mean, that was her answer. So when we were together and doing this downsizing, he said, you know what, Kathleen, I'm going to go to the publisher. Why don't we write Downsizing for Dummies, which doesn't exist yet, from 7,300 square feet to 3,000 square feet. We do the before pictures of our house and what we duplicate in the smaller house and make it, more contained. So they agreed. And over 3 years, we wrote the book while we were downsizing. And we're still downsizing to this day. Like my newest project was turn the guest bedroom into a massage room. But to do that, I had to put a Murphy bed in the wall in case we have guests. My next guest coming to stay with us is Sam Miller and his wife. We're going to come up and stay a weekend so we can, go back to some coaching that I've done with Sam over the years.
That's excellent. I know for you, it's been a bit of a family investment. You've talked about your wife being part of your book. I know your son's also been involved. Would you mind sharing some of what he had to say?
Yeah, so my son, listen in the front of the book, he says, this is what he wrote about my wife and I. Among many other things, I greatly admire your resilience in the face of the challenges. Each day, I aspire to live by your examples. And this is from our adopted son. An adopted son's no different than a son that was naturally born, but he's truly my best buddy. And to add at the end of that, when the adoption was final, my wife got pregnant with our 3rd child, Kaylee, which always happens, they say, right? So
now that you're at this point in your life and this point in your career, it's natural to start thinking about legacy. What do you hope that your legacy will be?
So that I gave a lot to people, the industry. I coached over 20 couples, my wife and I. We don't charge for coaching. And I handpick these people that in the 30 to 40-year-old. I know how to coach there really well because I'll tell them what I did at 30, and now I'm 67. And if they did this, they can get to somewhere like Kathleen and I have been able to get to. So I want to share that it's actually really easy to be successful, but it's also really easy to not be successful if you don't surround yourself by the right people.
Speaking of the right people, when you reflect on people who've had the biggest impact on you and who have been the best role models or have done the most profound things that have stuck with you, who are some of those people and what are those examples?
So in life, it would be my daughter, who had just 18 and a half years old when she died. She had built habitat houses. She had played basketball all through Europe. She was a gifted athlete, lettered in 4 sports in high school. She was a servant to others. We have a scholarship at the school, at our high school, and she was a servant leader. So it's amazing how much I learned from my daughter of 18 years. And if someone said, what if you would have known in advance you're only going to get your daughter for 18 years? God told you in advance, which that doesn't happen. That we would have said, great, we'll take it. It's just, so that's in life. Marrying the right person who stuck by me. She's the best advisor. I call her girlfriend, and let me share why that is so important. I'm on a security team at church, not currently, but I was. So I had a whole security team come over for a barbecue in our yard. And the manager of the church said she can't come because I live with my girlfriend. And the other guys on the team said, his girlfriend is his wife. I call her girlfriend. And the reason I call her girlfriend, if I don't call her girlfriend, someone else might. If I don't take her on dates, someone else might, right? And why work really hard, be really successful, and not have that person to spend the rest of your life with? And then the hardest thing I learned 7 years ago, my wife got liver cancer and kidney cancer. And she's a survivor. She's cancer-free. I learned from Kathleen that, it was Kathleen Strong, hashtag Kathleen Strong. I had churches praying, people praying, hundreds of people on Facebook giving messages. I just needed her to beat this. And the good news to having cancer in liver and kidney is it was in 2 different cancers. So when the kidney surgeon went in, the liver team went in first. The kidney team was in the room, and if it went good for the liver, they were going to right away use the same Da Vinci computer robot to do the surgery on her kidney. And then, so when the liver surgeon came out, he said, "I felt like a chip shot. I got it completely contained, and I got it right on the green." I don't golf, but it kind of still made sense. And then 3 hours later, the kidney surgeon comes out, and he said, "I felt God in the room with me as I was removing the tumor out of your wife, and I think I got it 100% contained, no chemo, no radiation."
Wow.
So it's just when I pinch myself that she's here with me as we're here in the Denver area. She came out to spend time with me and be part of it. So.
What a blessing. Well, I want to thank you so much for sharing so freely and also opening up so vulnerably. I know so many people are excited to hear from you. We've reached the end of our time. Is there a closing thought you'd like to leave our audience, anyone who's listening, with?
So, early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, and advertise.
Ralph Roberts, thank you so much for agreeing to do this revisit. I think you know why it was such a special moment for us to have Ralph back, and I've learned so much. If you think about the wisdom that he shared, not only of marrying the right person, but thinking about places where other people don't want to dig for business, and that's where the gold is. The pitfalls of when you're at your most successful is when some of the biggest troubles in your life, you have to have a group to surround you and invest in yourself and be making money while you're sleeping. Ralph, there's just so much more that you've shared. I want to thank you so much. And I encourage any of you who watch this, if you know someone that you think would benefit by being a part of the Star Power Club, please share this with them, invite them to join. And until next time, I'm Aaron Chadbourne for Star Power.